Everybody, I am Brandy Williams. I'm also one of the partners and realtors with Premier Home Advisors. I am originally from Greensboro, North Carolina, so a North Carolina girl, Carolina girl's best in the world. And I've also been licensed for almost 4 years.
All right, sounds great. I see we have a few guests on. I'm sure we have some people on Facebook as well. So as we're going through this, place your comments or questions in the chat or in the comment section on Facebook. Also, we have more information to send out after this live. So just let us know if you have any questions or comments, and we'll do our best to get those answered. So Mr. Williams here is with, correct me if I'm wrong, with SMS Advisors, and you are CPSM trained, right? And this is what you do full time. You go around and you help small businesses grow. You also help them to get started up and kind of set up the right processes and right legal advice going forward, right?
That's it. That's it.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, for me, this was not my choice to do this as a profession. Like most entrepreneurs, you have this craft and you perfect this craft and you have this thing that you love, whether it's home investment, whether it's a bakery, it doesn't matter, right? But at the end of the day, you say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go out and start up a small business, and you do it. And then you're like, well, wait a minute, there's a whole nother side of this business. I actually got to do business. So you got to run the business, and then you have to perfect your product or perfect your craft. So for me, it was years in corporate America doing procurement and supply chain. And I think I've wrote about over $1.5 billion in contracts with small businesses. And so that's the easy part when you're spending someone else's money. Then back in 2012, I decided I'm going to go out and take the venture. And so for the last 8 years, we've started up over 80 small businesses, whether from a growth perspective or the actual startup process or a transformation. Small businesses ranging from $0, I have nothing right now, to 50 million. So it's been a journey for us. I wouldn't trade it in for anything in the world. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of pros and there's a lot of cons. I'm sure we'll talk about those.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, I think that you mentioned something that might have struck a chord with some people, because you mentioned that you've had businesses that have started with 0 and businesses that have started with, 50 million. So tell us more about that. Like, do you have to have a certain amount of money to start a business? Does it depend on the type of business? How should people plan financially?
Yeah, it was really interesting. This is a long conversation. We can, how long do we have? But at the end of the day, you want to understand what type of business, what path are you going down, and what's your type of business. So that this answer could be different based off of what people are interested in. At the end of the day, regardless of the type of business, you also have to consider, are you asset light? And what I mean by that is, if I'm in a consulting firm or I want to start up a consulting practice, I have to know, how many consultants do I need? How much equipment do I need? I need laptops. Or if I'm in the trucking industry, I need to know, how many trucks do I need on the road at any given time? So I want to understand, am I asset heavy or asset light? And then that brings me back to, how much money do I need to capitalize in order to start this business? So if I need 17 trucks, I need a lot more money than if I need 3 consultants or 2 doctors to work with me.
Absolutely. Okay. And so is there a certain type of person that makes a successful entrepreneur? That's a good question, right?
Yeah. I don't think there is. I don't think there is. I think entrepreneurs come in all different shapes, sizes, colors. I will say there's some characteristics that are important. And so when I think about the characteristics of a small business owner, having very tough skin is number one. A lot of us get so frustrated. If we've ever spent any time in corporate America, we get so frustrated. I don't want to work for the man anymore. I'm going to start my small business. Let's go. Let's do it. And we realize that, man, my clients is just like my old boss. And so regardless of how you get your money, you're going to have to know how to navigate personal experiences and communication. So having tough skin, knowing that when people give you feedback in a lot of cases is about the growth. I'm giving you this feedback because I want you to grow. I'm telling you what not to do, what you did with me and what not to do with other people, because I'm your friend. This is friendly fire, but the next client might not be your friend. So having that tough skin and being able to adjust is really critical. That's from a softer side of the lens. But if I look at it from a hard skill, it's going to be knowing your numbers. You can't get around understanding the financial aspects of small business ownership. Know your numbers, know your numbers, know your numbers. So, Brandy, you said you're from Greensboro.
Yes.
I used to work in Greensboro for Silly Mattress Company. If you're familiar with.
Okay.
Yeah,
I used to work for Mattress Firm. Yeah, so
Did you really? Okay.
have some connections. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Trinity, North Carolina was the corporate headquarters for Silly Mattress Company. I started my first business in 2004 in Trinity, North Carolina. It was a trucking business. And what I realized was, regardless of how much money I make, I can't keep any money. It's like, how does this work? The more revenue I make, the more money I spend. And so Greensboro was a learning, kind of a learning ground for me to really tackle entrepreneurship while I was still in corporate America. And at the end of the day, I go back to knowing your numbers, knowing exactly what your margins are. And there's a difference between gross margin and net margin. And then being able to break down, how does that equate to working capital? Because just because I'm making money doesn't mean I have money in the bank, and they're two different things.
Very true. Very, very true. So it sounds like the couple of themes that are coming up just early on would be having some standards as well as some expectations. It seems for your money as well as for the service that you provide. Would you say those are kind of part of the characteristics that go along with being a successful business owner?
Well, yeah, you actually nailed it, Brandon. It's almost like we rehearsed this, but you nailed it. If I can understand and have a good depth of my service offering or my product offering, and I can match that with financials, the first thing that comes to mind is, what's my pricing points? What are my pricing points? How do I put together a proposal? That's when it counts, right? When your client says, "Yeah, that sounds good. Give me a proposal." And you're like, "Oh shoot, what do I do now?" So your ability to understand your service offering, your financials, which is your operating budget. I'll focus on the operating budget for now. And the linkage between those two would give you the ability to do a pricing proposal, or at least understand your pricing. And so that's really key. That's one of the first things that most entrepreneurs will need to master in order to be successful.
Okay, awesome. So as far as different types of organizations and setups, what would you suggest for someone, this is their first business, what should they be researching as far as how to actually set up their business?
So there's two things. If we can just keep it simple, right? And I think we'll have time for Q&A. We can go much deeper, but I'll just keep it simple. It's financial impact and financial risk. Those are the two things that I want to keep in mind as I'm thinking about small business or entrepreneurship. From a financial impact perspective, I'm thinking, how do I want to receive money? How do I want to get money? And how do I want to spend money? So in that particular perspective, I'm saying, do I set myself up as a LLC, as a S Corp, as a DBA? And at the end of the day, is how I get taxed and how I manage my money internally. All right, so we can go through tons and tons of depth, but if I keep it simple, I want to know my financial impact. How do I get money? How do I spend money, etc. So in this particular perspective, in order just to get paid, if I was just on the street hustling, selling T-shirts out of my trunk, and I want to get paid and I want to do it legit, I would just go ahead and get a DBA. It's called a doing business as, and I can do that with the county. Some people think that you have to go through the state and do all of this stuff and wait 3 weeks. You don't have to. You can actually do a DBA with the county. It costs $26. You pay an extra $5 for the notary. And for $31, somebody can write you a check to the name of SMS Advisors. Yes! No longer do you have to write under my personal name. Sounds really professional. But if you want to take it to the next step, and you want to say, well, you know what, I kind of want this to be more legit. Now look at the financial risk side of the equation. From the financial risk perspective, if something goes wrong, hopefully nothing goes wrong. But if something goes wrong, I don't want you coming after my personal money. I got kids and I got a whole bunch of stuff going on in my life. I just bought this new house to premiere. Hey, look, I don't need y'all attacking my stuff. So you would set up an LLC
Yes.
in this particular situation. All right, so limited liability corporation. With the LLC, you basically run it like you're running a corporation, with the exception of one thing at the highest level, which is how you pay yourself. You would pay yourself and what's left over in your LLC. If you want to go to the next level, it would be the S Corp. In the S Corp, you are essentially a corporation, and you would pay yourself on payroll, and you would deduct FUTA and SUTA and all the other taxes associated with small business payroll.
Okay, perfect.
So financial impact, financial risk, if you can master both of those, that will help you determine how you should set up your company, whether a DBA, a LLC, or S Corp.
Okay, awesome. And I'm assuming that you and your services, you'd be able to help someone to determine what's the best route for them.
I think I know a guy. Yeah, that's what we do. We support the growth of small businesses. In a lot of cases, a lot of our large organizations, a $25 million electrical contractor, they're still starting up other entities within their small business as subsidiaries. So even though we work with a lot of large companies today, we're still doing some of the base tactical get started type work, just like any other small business would do.
Because every situation requires something different, right?
Yep. There's, a quick 30-minute consultation. We can lay out the roadmap and understand exactly what your situation is.
Okay. So we have a couple of questions. So one person asked, and I think this is in reference to your name, what is CPSM?
I don't think I've ever received that question before in this type of format. That's a good question. Thank you. So CPSM is a certified professional in supply management. So essentially what that means is I am certified to go into any Fortune 1000 company that spends billions and billions of dollars with small businesses and instruct them on how to spend that money, how to write the contract, how to understand their cost structure, how to ensure performance and delivery, how to look at their logistics. So what that means in turn is for small businesses that are trying to sell into big box retailers or into corporations like a Home Depot, et cetera, I know both sides of the equation. So I can help them structure their product offering and their pricing in order to be successful inside of retail.
Awesome. Perfect. And then we had another question. What about a partnership?
Oh. Let's go back to our base premise, financial impact and financial risk. I think partnerships are great. Partnerships are extremely helpful because it's really interesting that 1 + 1 = 3 in a partnership. And a lot of people say, well, wait a minute, what does that mean? You can accelerate your growth much faster with additional resources. And it's not a 1-for-1. It's actually a 1-for-1.5 or a 1-for-2. So if 2 of us get together, we probably have the power of 3. If 3 of us get together, we probably have the power of 5, which is phenomenal when everyone's on the same page. On the flip side, we got to make sure that we all are in alignment. We go into Bank of America and we say, here's my job. They lay out our job responsibilities, and that's what we do. But when you're in small business, there are no job responsibilities at the highest level. It's who's on deck to make this happen to get us paid. So being able to understand who's doing what and when and be in alignment is really key. From an entity setup perspective, so that's just my commentary. From an entity setup perspective, you can do a partnership through an LLC or you can do it through an S Corp. It really doesn't matter. It depends on how you're trying to structure. If you want to pay both of the partners on payroll, you'll do an S Corp. If you just say, hey, look, we're going to keep the money at the end, you'll do it in LLC. And eventually the money at the end will come through on your taxes through what's called a K-1. Both partners will pull money from the company and they'll be taxed accordingly.
Okay, awesome. So we got on a topic just as far as the LLC, and you mentioned going to the bank. So when you're going to the bank to kind of start up that business and ask for money, what is the importance of having a business plan and who should write it? What does that look like?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me this question, and some people say, well, should I even go out for a loan? I'm not going to get it anyway. You'll be very surprised. And so let me answer your question, but let me just make a reference to something that's happening right now. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't need a business plan. I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this for 20 years, or I've been doing this for corporate America. I'm just going to go out and do it on my own now. I'm actually, my job's going to hire me. And that's great. But at the end of the day, when it counts, you need to be ready. And so what's happening right now with the CARES Act, we got $349 billion that was approved to support small businesses to help us through this pandemic. And then we got another $300 billion that was approved. So there's a lot of money out there, but we can't get any of it because we don't have our paperwork in order. All right. So at the end of the day, that business plan is important. Even if you think you never will use it, that business plan is going to force you to put together your marketing strategy. It's going to force you to understand your financials. You got to look at your income statement or P&L. You got to understand your balance sheet, what assets you have. It's really going to force that rigor that you need in order to be ready in the event a situation may occur. Now, that's for the people who don't care about business plans. All right, fine, don't do it, but you're going to get with the short end of the stick when you need it. For the folks that are like, you know what, I'm not going to be the person that procrastinate. I'm on board. Let's get a business plan together today. Then I think it's really critical because it's going to really be your working instructions for how you move forward in this business. So if I lay out my startup capital and I need 150,000 and I have the financials on there, I understand that my business is cyclical. I may take a step back and say, well, why would I start in the summer if I'm a chiropractor? Because a lot of my business actually picks up in August, September. So I put out $150,000 and I'm just sitting there waiting for people to come. Maybe I push that out just a little bit to July, beginning of August. And that way, when the cyclical increase happens, I'm right in line for those clients to come my way. And so you can look at any business and understand the cyclical nature of that business. The same in real estate, as you guys are very familiar with. There's a cyclical nature to real estate, and you got to be in line with when the timing is going to happen. So that's just one small, fine detail of the reason why I would plot out my business plan formally, because I want to make sure I'm ahead of that.
Mm-hmm. Now, is a business plan, is that something that the business owner should write up, or are there services to help with that? What does that part look like?
Yeah, it goes either way. I think for you can hire folks to do your business plan. Some folks will charge you $200, some $500, some $1,500. I would say you get what you pay for, but that's not always true. You can pay $1,500 for a phenomenal business plan, but they don't know anything about your business, and it looks really good on paper. So regardless of how much you pay, at the end of the day, you need to make sure it's in tune with what you want to do. And so there's a lot of key questions. If you hire someone to do your business plan, or if you do it yourself, there's some key questions that you want to start off with. One, what the heck am I selling? All right. So if we have a lot of clients that are like, hey, I'm gonna be a consultant, and I'm really good at finance. It's like, oh, phenomenal. I worked for Bank of America for 15 years. Oh, that's great. All right, how are you going to get paid? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Like, I never really thought about when somebody writes a check, what are they putting in that little line that says for what? All right, at the end of the day, when you start your business, that's the number one thing that you need to do is say, when you write me that check and give me that check, what did you give it to me for? So I can say, oh, yeah, we do small business startup, but you're not writing me a check for that. You're writing me a check to set up your LLC entity. Mm-hmm. You're writing me a check to determine your supply chain lanes and how you distribute product to your clients. You're writing me a check to do design and GMP processes for your warehouse, et cetera. So there's a reason why you're writing me a check, and we need to know that kind of going into our approach for how we grow and start a business.
Hey, I want to hop back. So when it comes to business plans, when you're doing something like a SWOT analysis, what are the key factors you need to look at when you're doing a SWOT analysis?
Yeah. So for those that are not familiar with that term SWOT, SWOT. So basically, I'm looking at my strengths, my weaknesses, my opportunities, and my threats. And what I want to understand at the end of the day is, can I make money? And can this business be successful? So in some situations, I may look at my strengths and my weaknesses, and that's going to be anything that I have control over. It's something internal that it can make or break me, and I have control over it. So I'm thinking about customer service. I hire the wrong people, right? So that's going to be a weakness that I have. Customers are calling me, they're ready to buy, but my folks can't close it out. They can't close the deal, which could be detrimental in real estate, as you guys may know. You could work 3, 4, 5 months with someone, and at the end of the day, if you can't close the deal, then congratulations for wasting your 3, 4, 5 months. So that's on the weakness side. You want to be able to look at the weaknesses. On the strength side, is going to be, what am I really good at? Because I need to make sure my marketing material says it. I need to make sure my website says it. And I need to remind people, hey, look, please send the next person my way. If you were happy with my job, send the next person my way. So my strengths are going to help me do that if I formally go through the SWOT analysis. And then just really quickly, on the bottom side of that is the opportunities and the threats. If you're just focusing on yourself and your small business internally, you're in trouble because you're not paying attention to what's going on around you. The threat of a pandemic. Who would have thought about this? Who would have ever thought that you cannot be out on the street right now showing nothing? Right? No one would ever thought about that. You look at manufacturers. How can you manufacture a product if you can't go into your building? It's not possible. I got a picture in my phone. I took a picture of DSW. I was at Office Depot, and I was walking out, and DSW was next door, and it was shut down. But literally, it was about 3 o'clock. FedEx pulled up, and an employee opened up the door and just loaded an entire cargo van of shoes. I was like, these guys have figured it out. They looked at the threat and said, no one could ever predict the pandemic, but this is an excellent opportunity for us to work the same hours to make the same money by shipping shoes instead of people coming to pick them up, but not have to deal with any of the customers. This is going to be very interesting in how we do business going forward. As a small business, you used to think that you have to be in front of someone every day making it happen, but now Zoom has become very popular. The stock price on Zoom is through the roof because we didn't think that we can do business this way. So back to your point, Vincent, SWOT analysis is extremely important. If we formally do a SWOT analysis and we look at the threats, we probably would have predicted this type of risk. And we would understand in a situation before it happened what some of our recourse would be if it happens.
Perfect. So we have another question. How did you go from corporate America to feeling confident in the service you can or felt you could provide as a CPSM?
Ooh, I'll try to keep this short. For me, there was a couple of things that happened. My nephew got shot and killed in 2011. My mother got diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer 4 months later. So I decided, wow, it's time for me to take a time out. Doing very well at the director level in corporate America, on path to be vice president in corporate America. The checks, along with that are very nice. You don't want for anything. I had to find stuff to spend money on in corporate America. But at the end of the day, it was about family, it was much, much more important. And so they offered me hey, look, you can go home back to Virginia with your family. I'm from Detroit, but I moved my family to Virginia. And so you can go back to Virginia with your family and spend half your time there and then spend half your time in New Jersey. And I did that for 3 weeks and decided that I need to be completely there for my mother. And she's taking care of her brother, who's mentally challenged. My sister, who's in town, has rheumatoid arthritis and lupus. And my nephews just saw their older brother get shot. So at the end of the day, why did I feel confident? Sometimes you don't. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. On January 26, 2012 in East Lansing, Michigan, at Michigan State University, I was doing a recruiting trip. My boss called me and said, "Where are you?" I was like, "At Michigan State." He's like, "Oh, I didn't know you were going." I was like, "I told you 5 times." He's like, because I really need you to work on this project. I was talking to the guys out in Paris. They don't know what's going on. And I was like, "You mean your mentor? Because you're from the Paris office, and I know you have mentors out there." And actually, that guy who doesn't know what's going on was on vacation because he just got married. And he was like, silence. And that's the moment that I said, yep, I'm stepping out. I'm taking care of my family, and I'm doing small business. So sometimes it's not about confidence. Sometimes it's about the right moment and the window of opportunity. And so whether it's, I feel really confident, that's great, and you should, but at the same time, you got to make sure the window of opportunity is right. You got to make sure that it's the time. If you're a chiropractor, like we talked about earlier, you might not want to quit in May because that's when your first peak of the year is going down. So hold off. Maybe go ahead and quit in July when the second peak picks back up.
And I think this is a great question for our team to answer as well. So I will hop in and very similar to Mr. Williams, you know, I did not necessarily have this great plan of coming into real estate. I was tired of corporate America. And I was like, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. It's not that I can't, I'm not going to do this anymore. And confidence came down the road. It was just making a decision and then taking action.
I would agree 100%. 100%. What, Brandy, to your point, no one is just in a situation where it's like, I'm fed up, I'm leaving. It's preparation. And for me, in 2002, I wrote on my whiteboard, I had the mental mindset of a Fortune 500 CEO, because I knew at some point there was going to be time for me to do something of my own. I look at it, we get ourselves in this situation. Hopefully we go to university, we go to military, but if we go to university, we pay somebody to teach us, we pay to learn. And then the whole point of return on investment is because we can go out and get a job and we get paid. But the key thing is we get paid to learn when we do that. And a lot of people turn off that learning. You turn it off and you say, these guys are paying me $55,000, $60,000. I'm happy. But you need to be taking every bit of everything that you learn every day. When somebody pisses you off, say, what do I need to learn by that? When somebody challenges you on finance and say, well, you know, that's a finance thing. And you're like, oh, okay, fine. No. Tell me why it's a finance thing. Because when that moment comes and someone makes you mad and you decide to go out and do small business, or something happens in your family, a family death, family sickness, and you decide the small business gives me the flexibility, you're gonna want to know those numbers. You're gonna want to understand, what were we doing in marketing? When you worked for Kellogg Company that had billions and billions of dollars of marketing budget, and you didn't pay attention to the strategies that they were putting in place, you missed out on a whole bunch of free learning. And so being able to maximize, if you are in corporate America right now, maximize everything that's happening around you, because at some point you're going to be the one that's making those decisions about those things that's happening on your dollar and your money.
That brings up a great point, if you ask me, when it comes to deciding on what business to start and when to start, right? There should be a lot of planning going into place if you're planning to step outside of corporate America, right? But how do you evaluate to say, okay, I like doing this. Can I turn this into a business? Or is this something that's already in the marketplace that's tough to compete against? Or is it something I should look at going a different path rather than going with this thing that I like doing?
Yeah. For me, I had to determine the same exact thing, Vincent. I said, hey, I really want to help small businesses grow. And I'm a phenomenal supply chain professional, but I love small business more. And at first, I didn't know that they were connected, to be completely honest with you. When we started this business, we didn't even think about all of these suppliers out here that have massive manufacturing supply chain footprints that are small businesses that are getting $10 million, $15 million from Wells Fargo. We didn't even think about those type of people. So I had to make sure that what I was doing was not a hobby. And some of us have really cool hobbies. I would love nothing more than to take 2 months off. Well, probably not now with everything that's happening. But one of my dream jobs is to take 2 months off and be a server at a restaurant. I just feel like I can sit down with you. Like we got a chance to connect for a little bit, but I feel like, you know, we're just vibing right now. We're just talking. I feel like if you come into my restaurant and you tell me what you want, I would be like, yeah, I'll get that. But you know what would be better? Because you look like the type of person that loves lavender. I got a drink for you. I'll be right back. So I just feel like I want to do that. I want to do that for 2 months and have a ball with it. But that is definitely a hobby. I don't want to be a restaurant owner because I don't know anything about restaurants. So we got to understand what's fun for us to do. I love to play the guitar. Okay, so yeah, I can go get some gigs. I can make $60 tonight at a restaurant. I can do a brewery. I can do Wooden Robot. But at the end of the day, I played for 25 hours this week, and I got about $320 to show for it. That might be a hobby. So you need to make sure that financially it can support you. And a lot of us don't really look at it that way. So if I made $100,000 in corporate America, then that equates to about $50 an hour. So whatever I'm trying to do doesn't get me at least $50 an hour, but then I got my overhead. Oh shoot. Okay, $75 an hour. Oh, but then I want staff. Okay, $100 an hour. All right. So you got to configure all of that. If what I'm trying to do doesn't at least bring in 1.5 of my hourly pay on a consistent basis, it might be a hobby.
Great way to
And I think, sorry, Brandy. I was going to say, and I think sometimes people get afraid, they know that they're good at something. People tell them all the time they should start a business doing it. And yet they don't trust where they are, whether it's financially or mindset wise. But I think it's also important to understand you can work that job, where you're working for somebody and begin to sow seeds into your business, begin to sow those seeds and get your name out there so that you can have a smooth transition. I personally, when I got into real estate, I wasn't comfortable just up and leaving my job and going straight into real estate. So I did it part-time for 6 months while I got my feet wet, while I saved some money on this end. And then obviously I realized how much I love real estate and how profitable it is. And so I made that transition a lot sooner than I would have if I, didn't get that push. Or, I just think it's important for us to realize that. And, I have friends, I tell them all the time, you're so good at this, you should start a business. And, sometimes it's about believing in yourself and then just doubling down on your focus to make both of those things happen so that you can eventually transition and be comfortable in your new venture.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, Brittany. It's almost like we rehearsed this. Man, it's like we rehearsed this. We have a program called, remember talk about putting that little, what are you writing this check for? We have a program called the Executive Soft Landing. And we purposely put this program together for folks in corporate America that just want to dip their toes inside of entrepreneurship. And for those folks, I got $20,000 in my bank account. It's not a lot, but how much would it cost me to do this one thing I love? I want to be a barber. How much would it cost for that? So we do the Executive Soft Landing program. And Brittany, to your point, it allows you to start that process. All right. So for someone that loves to be a barber, is it a hobby? Just because you cut your boy's hair when you was in college don't mean you can actually be a barber today. So is that a hobby or is it a job? So you say, you know what, I got a little bit of money. Let me take out a corporate lease. Let me work with my real estate team and get a commercial lease. Maybe I can do it something short term. Let me find a couple barbers that I trust. And you know what, guys, y'all go have at it. I'm going to still work this job, but after I leave at 5 o'clock, I'm going to come over there and cut some hair. And we're going to see over the course of 6 months, how does this work out? How do y'all get paid? How do I get paid? Should I make y'all employees? Should y'all be 1099s? Are we partners? And then you just put your toe in the water. So in that particular situation, our Executive Soft Landing creates that entire scenario. We'll negotiate the corporate lease or the commercial lease. We'll put together the business plan, understand the financial structure, and then we'll start to track whether or not we're hitting those financial targets, as well as how much is the owner that's in corporate America. At what point does corporate America and the money that you're making, if you were to average them out per hour, equal, and then you can make that jump. So being able to calculate your soft landing is really important, Brittany, just like you mentioned.
Yeah, and it's just so amazing, just the power of our mind, when you start that soft landing, you can write down the things that are important to you that you want to see in the next year, the next 3 years, the next 5 years. And that stuff just starts to manifest.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I wrote down 2007. I wrote down everything that we're doing today.
Wow.
And the crazy thing is, Brittany, is I wrote down small business support. I wrote down supply chain support. and then I wrote down corporate support. And when we started, I wasn't smart enough to go back to that thing. I forgot it existed. And so I'm sitting, we're doing small business startup. I'm sitting in front of a corporate client, and my corporate client said, I got a supplier that's driving me crazy. And we're like, wait a minute, what? It's like, I got a supplier that's driving me crazy. They don't need all of the stuff that y'all do, because y'all come in here and do these revitalizations, you do cost management structure. We're spending $3 billion and you find a way to save us 300 million. They don't need that. They're too small for that. They need just common sense about how to deal with corporate America. And I was like we do in our small business space. And so that was the moment that it connected. And I went back and said, oh, we got small business, we got supplier performance, and we have corporate training. And I went back and I found that document from 2007. I was like, oh, I had already written this down. So sometimes your thoughts from years ago come to fruition. And if you're not looking out for those small little symbolizations, write it down and then look out. You know, God tells us, God has his way of telling us that we're on the right path, but we have to look out for it.
Yeah. Yep,
So
that's true.
it definitely sounds like the ability to turn passion into business is something that you saw early on, because you've had this passion for supply chain, and yet you turned it into something totally different that you're able to do on your own.
Yeah.
How do people take that passion and take that first step into turning it into a small business?
I think we go right back, circular reference to the business plan. Let's take the concept that I have loosely, and let me understand who my market is. Do I have a target audience that's willing to pay me for these loose concepts that I have in my head right now? If I'm an interior designer, we have one of our corporate clients, one of the young ladies that work for our corporate client, she loves interior design. And so I was talking to her in the hallway one day, and I said, well, who's going to pay you for that? And she's like, you know what? I don't know. And I was like, well, who designed this place in the corporate office that we're in? And she's like, I don't know. I was like, how are you going to be an interior designer sitting here with somebody just got paid probably $375,000 to design the building that you're in, and you don't know who it was? All right, so we got to be able to create that vision and that plan. And if she created her business plan, she would have automatically said, I want to be an interior designer. Well, for residents, maybe for small businesses, and maybe for corporations. And then also, why don't I have partnerships with real estate agents? So that business plan is really going to put in perspective how you go after the money. And that's going to be really important to solidify and make sure that what you're trying to do is feasible.
So talking about kind of those first few steps, how do you determine what the startup cost and the other expenses are?
So a lot of people, actually I'm doing it literally today. This morning I came into the office to focus on startup costs for a client. You have to go step by step. A lot of people like to say, well, it'll be about this. But you have to go step by step. So the first thing I do is a process map. My process map tells me, how do I get from right here to having the doors open on my business? So I go through the progression. All right, I need a commercial lease. Okay. I need a front office assistant. That person is going to actually welcome somebody as they come through the door. Okay. Oh, I need furniture to sit in. So literally think about the progression of you walking in your front door for the first time, and think about everything that you need to be successful. I need a phone to actually call. Oh, how do phones work? Do I have an answering service? So you got to put yourself and simulate that environment of you being a small business leader. And when you simulate that environment, then you can start to go through and cost it. How much does it cost for audits or phone service? What type of furniture do I have? If I'm working from home, maybe I can expense that, but I need to understand how much am I spending on home expenses. So let me go ahead and put that together. Do I need a staff? If not, do I want 1099s? So you got to go through the progression of how do I make money from step 0 to step 20 or 25, and then you can go through and cost each one of those steps. And so I'm working on a $355,000 deal right now, and I'm doing the exact same thing. And you would do the same thing if it was a $3,500 deal.
Okay, awesome. I want to start wrapping us up a little bit just so we do have time for those question and answers. So definitely anyone, be sure to type your questions in the chat as well as on Facebook in the comments. However, I want to know, what books should a small business owner or someone who's thinking about small business, what books should they be reading? What would you suggest?
All right, so I laugh because my book is sitting right there. I don't want to plug it. I don't want to plug it. But I will.
Yeah, you have to. You have to do that. It was too easy.
And actually, my bookcase is right here, so I'm gonna grab them right now. This is not planned at all. This is 100% impromptu, so I hope it works. I'm not sure if people are going to be able to see it. But this is one book that is 100% amazing. Start with Why, a guy named Simon Sinek. And Simon Sinek, you can actually look at you can Google him get him on YouTube and look at his TED Talk. But he talks about your purpose. Why exactly are you going down this path? He talks about two brothers. It's been a little while since I read it, but he talks about two brothers that were completely unheard of. And then he talks about the Wright brothers, who we've all heard of. And he talked about the fact that the Wright brothers didn't have money. They didn't have a lot of funding, but they had a lot of friends that believed in them. The brothers who we never heard of had government agencies, they had corporations, and they had very rich friends. But at the end of the day, the Wright brothers were the first to flight because they had a mission. The folks with all of the money, no one was really on the same page. I had a whole bunch of partners and people in there with MBAs, but no one really knew what they were trying to accomplish. And the Wright brothers beat them out. Little small brothers with not a lot of money from North Carolina beat out the corporate engine, right? So Start with Why really talks about your purpose, why you're trying to do this, and then how do you convince people to believe in you. So I think that's a great book. Strength Finders is another book that people love. Tom Rath. And it really goes into kind of who you are, what strengths you have, what are your weaknesses, and how do you define that. This one, oh man, this is amazing. Managing by the Numbers. For those of you that don't, kind of feel like you're not so good with numbers, Managing by the Numbers is going to break things down in a very simple way for you. And then I got to throw mine in there. The Dynamics of Leverage. The Dynamics of Leverage is a little bit more on the softer side. It talks about who you are, how you're wired, and how do you influence others. And then also, how are other people wired, and how are they trying to influence you? It talks about my mother and what I learned from her at a very early age in negotiations, which was the reason why I went into supply chain, which is the reason why I am where I am today. So the Dynamics of Leverage. It also gives you a negotiation style. So it gives you an actual negotiation style. Once we find out what that is, it breaks down how you're wired and how you can use certain things to your advantage. So those would be, again, I wasn't planned. I hope everyone saw those books if you can see it in the lighting. But at the end of the day, if I have 4 books to choose, those would be the 4 books.
Hey, I have a real good segue from what you just talked about there. How do you choose the right hire for your business?
Oh, you're killing me, man. You're killing me. I've had some good ones and I had some bad ones. I think number one is that there's a cultural fit. There's some people out there that can help you make a lot of money, but if you spend 8 hours a day arguing with them, it's not even worth it. So if there's a cultural fit, if you guys are aligned and you have the same premise and what you're trying to accomplish, at the end of the day, 2 people can disagree, but if both of y'all believe in hustling, y'all are going to figure it out sooner or later because you got to get out there and start hustling again. All right. So as long as you're aligned and you know what you're trying to accomplish, I think that's number one, the culture. I just kind of summarized that into cultural fit. The other one is roles and responsibilities. There's going to be some things that I tell you, and there's going to be some things that I didn't even know I needed. Right. So some people, I kind of break this down by, would you rather a Scottie Pippen or a Michael Jordan? And some people are like, what do you mean by that? So Michael Jordan, you can put on the court, he can do anything. He can probably play 4 different positions. Scottie Pippen, he kind of was trying to figure out what was his role on the team and how he was going to flow in and fit in. And so sometimes you want Scottie Pippen. You want to say, hey, go out there, give me rebounds, push the ball up court when I need you to, and throw some assists, and I'm happy with that. If you can support me, support Jordan, we're good. And if you need a Scottie Pippen, that's fine. And that person, you can pay a little bit less because you told them exactly what you wanted to do. But don't get mad when that customer calls you and asks you for that new thing, and that person is on the phone like, can we call you back? And they forget to tell you. Because Scottie Pippen wasn't ready for that. He's not ready to take on this new thing that came out of the blue, and we need to score 2 points right now before the last 2 seconds to win this game. Michael Jordan is, but Michael Jordan costs a little bit more money. So I think the biggest thing that people have to decide is, what tolerance do I have for success and for error, and whether or not I can put together. If I can put together a very detailed scope of work of exactly what I want that person to do, then great. Then you probably can get a little bit more economical higher. But if you're looking for somebody to come in and do everything, then it's not going to work out for you long term. So I think that's the first thing that I would do, Vincent. That's a long answer to your question, but the first thing I would do at the end of the day is, am I looking for somebody who can come in and do everything and tell me what I need to do before I even think about it? Or am I going to put together a thorough scope of work? So which one do I have a tolerance for? And that kind of determines, all right, do I have a cultural fit in this person that's sitting in front of me?
MJ all day, baby.
MJ costs a lot of money though, man. I don't know. Small business won't have a lot of money, but you do have equity. And so I know I kind of left that question open. So if I don't have a lot of money, I do have equity and I do have growth and potential of this organization. So I can pay you this, plus we can share some growth together. All right. So, don't forget, you have negotiation. So get the dynamics of leverage, 12 unwritten influence rules for leadership, life, and lunch, and then teach you how to negotiate.
There we go.
And I would think that the right person that can really fill in those gaps can also elevate your business and allow you to grow that profit as well, to be able to pay them more. So that right person is really going to allow you to make more money and move them in the direction too.
Yeah. Along with building in like incentives, if you're not quite there where you can pay them on a consistent basis for this type of work, but if you do this type of work, then we give you an incentive or bonus for whatever it is that, you're contributing, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Brittany and Brandy. I think if at the end of the day, kind of taking both of those comments, if I can attribute the actual activities that person is doing to some growth in revenue and or profit, then it probably is a good situation. To your point, Brittany, the problem that a lot of folks, or the issue that a lot of folks have, is that they never make that connection into this new hire and the impact to my revenue or profit. So you're not able to measure the success of your new hires. So I would say that's really important for small business owners, whether it's a partnership, a new hire, a contractor, 1099. Make sure you can somehow measure their success, and it's written or it's verbally communicated and agreed, where everyone's on the same page. If this happens, this is where we're going. I had a business partner some years back, and I hate to, I'm not gonna say any names, but we were on a client account, and the account was paying us $20,000 a month, which was pretty nice for us. This is 2013 or 14. So this is a nice gig for us. And for whatever reason, this person didn't understand why we were getting paid that. They knew what they were doing on site, but they didn't understand why we were getting paid. And so when I wasn't there, there were opportunities coming our way that this person didn't see, because they didn't understand the why. They didn't start with the why, Simon Sinek, right? So they weren't able to see we were there because we were innovative in doing things that their team were not doing. What they said was, when Jishan is not here, I'm going to do what they tell me. And so we talked about the growth of the company and how do we everyone participate in that growth, and we started doing performance bonuses based off of our ability to gain and capture and grow business. And so that company came back and said, we got budget cuts, we got to see whether or not we can keep you here. And so every month they kept us the full 12 months like they committed to, but every month starting from month 9, I asked this person, what are you doing to create more value? And this person said, I'm doing everything they're telling me. And so at month 12, they said, thank you guys so much. You saved us $16 million. We didn't have to lay people off. Thank you. We love to call you one day and bring you back if something happens where we need to do such. But what we didn't do, that was great for what we planned, but it wasn't great for month 13 for them saying, oh, we're actually bringing our warehouse folks from California and Florida and merging a warehouse and distribution center right here on the side of our 15,000 square foot facility. Can you guys do that too? All right, so you got to be able to measure that person by not only what you plan, but their ability to grow your revenue or grow your profit margins. And if you come to an alignment that we're going to share that together, then they need to know that if you don't do that, then there's an adverse impact.
So we have another question. Someone said, what about bylaws for a company?
Yeah, I mean, you got me pontificating and sharing all my personal stories. Let's get back to some technical stuff. Bylaws are very important, but typically when I say bylaws, I'm talking about nonprofit. All right, so by default, if you're talking about bylaws, you're technically talking about organizations or nonprofits, and that's more stringent. But then I also come back in small business. If I set up an S Corp instead of an LLC, I, by law, have to capture my meetings. What are my meeting minutes? Who has what stock? Who invested what money? Where are my assets? So my bylaw is going to be very important as to how all of that works. For an LLC, you don't necessarily need to, by regulation, do bylaws. But what's important, whether or not you call it bylaws or a lot of people call it an operating agreement, what's important is to understand how do we operate, and not like how do I come in every day and answer the phone, but more so I'm in a partnership with Vincent, and Vincent's like, dude, my mother is sick, and I know what happened to your mother, and she recovered. I'm gonna be there for my mother the same way. I'm out of here. I'll be back in 3 months. If we're partners, the operating agreement or the bylaws are going to tell us how do we deal with Vincent taking off for 3 months. And so really important for you to establish that, because it's going to force you to think about a lot of different scenarios that you will need to know what to do in those situations that you wouldn't have thought about otherwise.
All right. I don't see any other questions. I'm looking on Facebook and in here. Brittany, Vincent, anyone that's on, any other questions you guys have?
I don't have any additional questions. I think you're very thorough, and we kind of dabbled in a lot and talked about a lot. And hopefully those that are on the call can see value in what you can provide. And, you know, just if they're looking for additional resources or more specific help with starting up their business, would it be okay for them to contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. I can share my information, and oh, there it is right there. You guys are on point. You know, one of the things that we didn't talk about, I'll make this very short and sweet. There are 7 things that you need to think about when you're starting your small business. So I want to make sure people can take notes if you like. All right, so I'm sitting down. I think I want to do this. I want to start my small business. The first thing I need to think about is, what is my growth strategy? How do I go from $0 to 50,000, 100,000? What's my growth strategy? The second thing is my business entity. We floated around with this a little bit earlier, but DBA, LLC, S Corp are the 3 main types of business entities. Really, for legal support, you don't want to do a DBA. You want to just get paid something real quick, a DBA is fine. But for legal support, you want to get into an LLC or a S Corp. The third thing that I'm thinking about is going to be, what's my legal and contract structure? So do I have a customer agreement? for example? Do I have an agreement with my vendors, or do I have a scope of work? So you want to think about all of those contract agreements that you're going to need in order to be successful. The fourth thing is going to be more so in the financial modeling. Do I have a income statement? Do I have an operating agreement? Do I have startup costs? All of those financial things. What's my revenue? What's my return on investment? How do I look at capital? So I'm looking at the financials in that space. If I go fifth, it's going to be operational excellence. What marketing materials do I need? How do we answer the phone? What's my 5-step process when a client calls me for me to be able to close the business and get paid? Number 6 is going to be tax. How do I focus on tax structure? And then number 7 is going to be staffing. How do I hire the right people and put the right partnerships around me? So we focus on your 7-step plan when you come to us and ask us to help you with your small business. But a lot of folks, if you feel like you can do it on your own, that's fine. So those are the 7 steps that you should consider. And if you have that in order and you jot that down, that's the beginning process for your business plan.
Awesome. All right, so we have your information here on the screen. Certainly questions, consultations, anything to help with just that business. Now, Jashawn, do you also work with businesses that are already up and running as far as advising them, or is this more so just for folks who are looking to start a business?
Both. So we used to do a lot of startups. That was when we first started, about 80% of our business. Now it's actually flipped. 80% of our business come from established corporations and small businesses that are 50 to 25 billion. So 50 million to 25 billion. But we by referral only, we still take small business startups. So if you reach out to us, just say, hey, we were hanging out, we checked you out, Premier, they're good people, and we saw you on there and chatting it up with them. So I'd like to talk to you about how to start up my small business, and we'll be more than happy to sit down with someone. It literally takes a 30-minute consultation. Once you give me 30 minutes of what you're thinking, I'll give you 30 minutes of a plan. So 60 minutes, you know exactly what you need to do, and from there you'll understand whether or not the investment in us is worth it for you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it looks like we have answered all the questions. We've asked a couple of questions. So I certainly just want to say thank you for assisting and answering those questions and providing some great guidance. I know that, there's a lot of folks who in this time, they're realizing that starting their own business might be the best option for them and their family. So I am sure that you will have some people reaching out to you or even adjusting their business based on what we have going on right now. You are certainly a great resource to them.
Well, no, thank you, Brandy. Thank you, team. It's never too early to think about your small business. For folks on the phone, if you're in corporate America and you got $50,000 in your bank account and you're living a good life, you never know. 5 years from now, there'll be maybe another pandemic. And so you want to have some hidden seeds. I'll share this really quickly, Brandy. The first small business, the second small business that we started up was the business that saved my mother's life. All right, so you never know when God calls you to do certain things. We started up a chiropractic business, and she went into Chinese medicine and acupuncture and supplements, and I was able to blend my mother's chemo medicines with supplements, and it got her into remission a lot faster, and it kept her into sustaining remission. So you never know when your number is called. So if you're sitting comfortable right now, don't get too comfortable. Consider small business as a part of your retirement portfolio.
All right, sounds good. Well, we want to thank you for coming at this time. Oh, hey, go ahead, Brandy.
Go ahead. Nope, you're good to go.
Okay. Hey, and for anyone that's tuning in, we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. Our contact information is here. We are a real estate team in the Charlotte area, and we also
looking good.
Yeah. We also serve the Greensboro area, so that information is there. We'll wrap up and just see if there are any final questions here.
Yep, I think we're good to go.
Yes, please follow us on Premier.